Welcome to the Clearlywell Podcast. I'm Elizabeth McKeon, a board-certified psychiatric mental health and addiction recovery nurse. This podcast aims to bridge the gap between mental health and substance use discussions, fostering understanding and empathy while reducing stigma. Join us as we amplify the voices of those with lived experiences, creating a non-judgmental space for their stories to be heard. Thank you for tuning in. So welcome to the Clearlywell Podcast. We are in part 2 of Ashley York's amazing journey to recovery. And if you did not listen to part 1, you'll want to go back and definitely listen to that. So welcome, Ashley.
Hey!
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So if I remember correctly, you had been in Alto State Prison and you were 2 years in there clean. Mm-hmm. With no support, no treatment, no nothing, and your dad has just gotten you back home.
Yes. And see, now being educated, the whole time I was sober, while I didn't have tools, my addiction was doing push-ups. It was getting strong, even though I wasn't using because I didn't apply any tools or any recovery, any of that. So it was getting stronger while I was just not using. So when I was released from Alto State Prison, and like I said, I had all these intentions to do right. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get my dad to help me, and I'm just going to move on with my life and leave the past in the past. So when I get out that same night, I decided I would go with some friends that were doing cocaine. Did I say no? Absolutely not, because I had no tools to say no. Because at that time, I was like, I can control this. I've been clean this long. I can control this. I was wrong. I was off to the races. Luckily, I didn't have any interference with law enforcement or anything like that. But I did my same pattern. I met a guy, but this time he did not do drugs at all. And he was in the military, and I was like, this is going to fix me. This is really going to fix me because he doesn't have problems.
There's a pattern here.
There is definitely a pattern. So I was like, this is going to fix me. So we got married. I got pregnant with my daughter, and I stayed sober. I stayed sober for 18 months. I got in church, but I didn't go to meetings. I didn't have any peer support, any recovery support. I just thought I was miraculously okay because I had this person in my life and I had my daughter I was actually raising. And then we started having marriage problems. And the first coping skill that I had was to go get meth.
Ouch.
First thing I did was go get meth, and then I was pregnant again with our second daughter, and I kind of used off and on with her. And when I went to the hospital to have her, they were like, you tested positive for methamphetamines. And my husband was like, you did what? And so I was like, well, maybe those were diet pills. He was like, diet pills? But I was grasping at straws at this point. He did allow me to go home with him and the girls, but then DFAC stepped in, and he had to have custody of the kids, and he left. And I was like, once again, all I have is my addiction. That's all I have. I don't have anything. That's all I have is my addiction.
That's been your best friend this whole time.
It's been my best friend. And so that went on for a little bit, and he wouldn't let me see the kids. Like he was in law enforcement. He didn't budge. And today I'm thankful that he didn't, because my youngest kids don't know me as an addict.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they didn't experience any of that. They were really young. So one day I got the bright idea, because he wouldn't let me see them, that I'd show up at the babysitter's house. I kicked her door open. She was trying to call 911. I slapped the phone out of her hand, and I got my youngest daughter in the car, and I was like, where's my other daughter? And she wouldn't tell me. But I left with the baby, and the investigator was calling me. He was like, if you don't bring her back, kidnapping runs 20 years. And I'm like, this is my kid. How am I kidnapping my own kid? He was like, you don't have any rights right now. So I took her back. And I thought everything would be fine, but my husband at the time did press charges. And so I did get arrested. again. And I remember sitting there like, well, by this time it's been 10 years, 12 years. Like, when can I start making different choices? How can I be a different person? So I was in the county jail, and I called my dad. I was like, I'm in jail. And I just heard the sigh of relief in his voice because he didn't have to worry about me. And I was like, I've got to do something different. I have to do something different. And so my dad was like, let me get you into a rehab. Now, this is, I've been a revolving door in the jail system, and this was the first time that I was eligible to go to treatment.
Now, was that through the drug court system or?
No, they came and interviewed me for that, and I was like, with all due respect, I can't show up to probation once a month. I can't show up every day. I need to go somewhere. I need to get out of this city. I need to get away from the people, places, and things. And I'm so glad that I did. So,
so this is your first journey into rehabilitation.
Yes. So, I was hoping to get out of jail. I was like, all right, I've agreed.
So was that a tactic?
That was a tactic. Okay. I was like, I've agreed. Somebody come pick me up.
You had me fooled because I was all like, oh, good. She's finally ready.
So, but this is what happened. So, they told me I still had to sit and do my jail time. So I called my dad. I was like, well, I don't need treatment if I'm going to be here 60 days. I'm not going to treatment. I want to sit here and do my time. So he got upset and hung up the phone, and I went back to my cell. And that night I had a using dream that scared me to death.
When you say a using dream, like you were using drugs?
Yes, with a needle on my arm, overdosing. I woke up crying. It scared me so bad. I got on the phone. I called my dad. I said, I will go. When my time is done here, I will go to treatment. So I got accepted into treatment.
Okay, I got to stop you, though. Were you using needles?
Yes.
Okay, that's something that we didn't talk about.
Yes.
So you had gone, and how long had you been using needles?
Probably about 5 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Off and on.
So that dream was really close to being a reality.
Very real.
Okay.
And it scared me to death. And so I told my dad, I was like, all right, I'm waving the white flag. I will go. But as soon as I was released, I called the drug dealer to come get me, not my dad. I had to go back one more run.
You know how often you hear that? That is so common. I'm going to have one last rodeo.
One last rodeo. And so my dad was looking for me all over town, and my sister and my mom. And my sister found me. She knew who I would be with, and she was like, if you don't go home, this is your last chance. And when she said those words, it pricked my heart, and I was like, I'm going home. And I did go home. And so I spent 2 days getting my belongings together, which was only a reusable grocery bag full of belongings. That's all I had for 29 years of living.
Gosh.
Which is just a bunch of broken promises and a bunch of disgust, chaos, just a mess, like a whole tornado. That's all I had for 29 years of living. And the whole time I was at my dad's getting ready to go to treatment, I had already got me some meth. My dad didn't know. So, of course, I was up for a few days. But I remember that morning, because it was a 5-hour drive, I remember getting up like at 3. Well, I was already awake. But so I went and looked in the mirror. I'm trying to put on some makeup. And I remember looking in the mirror and breaking down. And I was like, this is who I am. But I'm about to make some changes. And I was so scared of making those changes. And I was like, how can God do anything with my life out of all these broken pieces? And my dad walked in and he hugged me. And he was like, you're going to give up this one thing, but you're going to gain a whole lot more.
Was your dad clean by now?
Yes.
How long had he been clean?
4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he had a good start.
Yes, he did. And he was real heavy in the church, and I would tell him all the time, yeah, I go to church, but I would never show up. I ain't got nothing to wear. I can't fix my hair. All kind of excuses. But I remember looking in that mirror who are you? I hate the person that I see. I hate the person I'm looking at. And so we go down the road, and I have him stopping at all these bathrooms because I'm using. But he had no idea. So we get down to the rehab, and she's like, can you pass the drug test? I'm like, nope. And he was like, what? I'm like, She was like, she's doing what addicts do. They use. So, like I said, I had all my belongings in a reusable grocery bag, just one. And so we said our goodbyes, and I went up to my room and I sat down on that twin-size bed, and I was like, God, if you will save me from this, I will spend the rest of my life helping other people like I am. I meant what I said, and he obviously meant listening to me. So I went to a program in South Georgia, and it was a phenomenal program. I was there 12 months. But when I had been there 7 months, like I followed all their rules. I did what they told me to do, did the coping things. And
Did you go through like a pretty heavy detox in the beginning, or no, not really? Mm-mm. That's good.
And they didn't let me sleep it off or anything, but that was good for me. Like, I got up, put my big girl pants on, and I was like, you know what? I've made this mess, and I'm going to clean it up. So, the start of my journey, like, looking back, like, I had so many fun times in that rehab. It was so strict, but, like, I had some of the best times there, like, discovering who I was as a person. But also, I can tell you, there were so many days that I would lay in my closet and cry because I was not able to do meth anymore. I was like, I'm losing my best friend. This is the person that's always been, like, I grieved.
That was a divorce.
It was a divorce, and I grieved that relationship. I can't tell you how many nights I laid on that floor crying because I knew I couldn't use meth anymore.
That's powerful.
And that was my best friend.
Yeah.
My addiction had been there the whole time.
That's
while
right.
everybody else would leave and people would come and go, and the drugs were always there. So, like, I grieved that relationship, and I grieved the thought of, I'm not a normal person. I'm not at the time I thought I wasn't a normal person, but I'm allergic to drugs and alcohol. I break out in handcuffs every time. Every time.
That's right.
So, I completed the rehab. I stayed there 12 months, and I was like, I'm ready to go home. So, I came home. I moved in with my dad. I started getting my kids. First, it started off every other weekend. There were some obstacles kind of getting back in the swing of things, but like I was so excited that I didn't have to depend on anything to make me feel good anymore. Like, I just couldn't believe like what God had just changed in my life. So like I was on fire about it. I'll go to all these meetings, talk to all these people, and but one big important thing that I forgot to mention while I was in rehab. So my dad came and picked me up for our off-property visit, and we weren't allowed to go into restaurants with alcohol or anything, so we stopped at Taco Bell. And before I left, I was in the art closet in the ministry that I went to, and there was a little lighthouse. And I'm like, God just laid it on my heart, you need to give that to your dad. And I'm like, a stupid little cardboard lighthouse? Okay. And there was a scripture I put with it, and it was in Matthew, talking about with God all things are possible. So I was like, all right, I'm going to put it in my little backpack. So we were eating at Taco Bell in Milledgeville, and he says, so I want to talk to you about something. I was like, okay. He was like, God's laid it on my heart to start a addiction ministry. I was like, oh, that's so awesome. That's so cool. I can't wait. He was like, guess what I'm going to call it? I was like, what? He said, Lighthouse. I was like, so my mouth dropped, and he's looking at me, and he's like, is everything okay? I was like, I got something for you. Let me go get it. So I went to my backpack, and I brought it back, and I handed it to him. I was like, God laid this on my heart to give to you. So that was his confirmation, and like,
wow, that's so powerful.
It is so powerful, and like, it's just amazing what recovery and God can do for somebody. I was so excited, and I was like, I wanna help people that were like I was, because I remember feeling so hopeless. And so I came home, and when we started the Lighthouse, it was just a Saturday night service, kind of like Celebrate Recovery. Okay. So we kept seeing the same thing. People would come in and they would want to get clean, but guess what? They're going back in the same environment. You can't get clean that way. So I worked for some people cleaning houses on the side, and I was working at my dad's electrical company, and just doing this all just because I wanted to. It wasn't a job at that time, and we kept seeing the same thing, people coming in wanting to get clean, but not having the tools or the safe environment to get clean. So we started praying, we need a house. We need something. So I was cleaning for these people up in Sky Valley. And, of course, when you're around people, you talk about things you're passionate about. So what did I always talk about? The lighthouse, because I loved it. I loved helping people in recovery. And he asked me, he was like, what do you need to get started for the men's house? I was like, I don't know, $100,000.
Did you throw out a number and you didn't even know, right?
Yes. I was like $100,000. He was like, have your dad call me Monday.
And I know the county you live in, which is the richest county in Georgia. So
yes.
You needed $1 million.
So I was like, okay. So my dad called him, and he was like, I'll give you $200,000 on a loan.
Wow.
You can pay it back with no interest.
Oh my goodness.
So we found a piece of property in Tiger, and we went to the meeting. We were not allowed to come to Tiger. They turned us away, which was all part of...
You know what? Thank you, Tiger.
Yeah, thank you, Tiger.
That's right.
But, God really does work all things together for our good, because there was a man in the meeting that we had helped his son get into treatment. And he called the next day. He says, I got a spot I'll sell you. It's already his own commercial. You don't have to go in front of anybody. Nobody has to vote you in. It's already zoned. It was actually a gutter business with a house on it. And it was so funny because my dad would always say, we're going in the gutter business. We're going back in the gutter to get people to bring them out.
There you go.
And it was a gutter shop. I was like, oh my gosh, you can't make this up. So we got the money to buy the place, and we bought the place that we have now in Lakemont. It had one big house, but it separated into like 2 apartments. And when we opened up, I remember like being so excited and just full of joy, and like all these miracles just started happening, and I was like, this is amazing. This is what recovery is all about. Now I really do. Because, in my community, everybody knew who I was, what I had done. I was a revolving door at the jail. Like, I had a record. I had a record, and they knew who I was.
Not only did you have a record, you had a reputation.
Very bad reputation. Very bad. And so...
And I'm going to guess, just knowing small towns like I think I do since I'm from one, that they probably judged you for what you were doing in ministry as maybe there was something not good behind that.
Yes.
They weren't ready to trust you.
No. And honestly, like, we've been open 5 years now, and just in the last 8 months, people are starting to come around, and there are still some people that will never come around, and that's fine. But it doesn't stop the passion that I have to help people. And, you just got like a big donation from the local Rotary for your fancy van. Yes.
So you can provide transport.
And not just any van, like it's a really nice transit 12-passenger. We also built another house on the property debt-free.
That's awesome.
We still owe on the property, but we don't owe on that house that we just built.
And I've seen that house. It's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous.
Yes.
And
like, I would want that house for me.
I would too. I was like, oh, I could stay in that. But it provides a safe place for people to get well. And
well, let's toot your horn for a second.
Okay.
So let's talk about, so we know that you have this great recovery center, which, I've been to your open house and seen you have the Georgia Addiction and Recovery Council there for listening session. But you are in school. And let's talk about what you've accomplished so far.
So first off, when I first started, I was like, I'm going to be an addiction counselor, not knowing all the hoops and jumps that I would have to jump through. But it was my passion, and I had my mind made up. I don't care, come hell or high water, this is what I'm doing. And like, there's nobody in the area that could give me my training hours, my work hours, but God puts people in your life. And so I started working with a guy. He is on the State Board of Georgia for addiction counseling. He was my supervisor. So I spent 4 years getting the hours, well, right at 3.5, somewhere around there. Getting all the work hours that I needed, all the education hours that I needed. I got associates in criminal justice. So many education hours. It was outrageous, and so many clinical supervision hours. And then I had to study for this big test for my certified addiction counselor. I studied for like 2 months.
That's Sean in the background coughing.
So I went and took the test, and I passed. And
Yay!
I was so ecstatic. I was like, oh my gosh. But
so by now you've become a recovery counselor, and you have an associate's in addiction. Wait, in what? It's criminal
justice. But now, and it'll be so funny when I'll be in my criminal justice class, because I kind of giggle. I'll be like, Professor, I got some inside
experience.
Yeah. And he was like, you do? Like, he couldn't see it, but I just would joke with him. Because he was like, he worked for the GBI and stuff that. And like, we went on trips to do a crime scene investigation contest.
I bet he looked you up.
I'm sure he did. But he just couldn't believe it because, it was...
Look at you today.
It was a night and day difference. But when I got done with my criminal justice, I did go back. Now I'm doing my bachelor's in psychology, specializing in addictions and recovery, which I have 8 weeks left.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm about to get that cap and gown, and I'm so excited. And once I do that, I will level up to a level 2 certified addiction counselor. But
so that's a CAC?
Yes,
CAC. 1 that you are now, and once you have the bachelor's, you'll be a CAC 2. That's awesome.
And I probably won't stop there. I keep saying, I'll be so happy when I don't have school on my plate.
Well, look at me. But I'm in school again.
Yeah,
so you just never stop.
You just never stop. And that's just my personality. Like, recovery for me has defied the odds of my past.
I'm going to say it most certainly has.
It has.
You are like living walking proof that I did a Did You Know at the first. I try to do those at the first of every guest. And the Did You Know was about what peer support can do for people in recovery and all the support that it gives. And now you are that beacon through your lighthouse to others.
And I love it. I love it so much. And I do believe that one of my greatest tools is not something that I learned in a classroom, but it's something that I lived through. I don't do a lot of self-disclosure just because, but at the right times I will. But I can empathize and sympathize with those people because I've been right where they are, and I am those people. So I tell them all the time, I don't cut anybody any slack. I'm kind of a hardball because I know it can be done. I know it can be done, and if I can get clean, anybody can get clean. You just have to want to and be willing to do the work to get there.
That's absolutely right. Thank you so much for your story. I appreciate everything you do for the state of Georgia and for your voice and the voice for those who cannot speak their truth. And just thank you so much for being you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please do not substitute this podcast for professional therapy or treatment. The content shared here is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We do ask our listeners to respect the diverse experiences of individuals and refrain from passing judgment. If you or someone you know needs professional help, please seek the guidance of a registered and qualified mental health professional. Clearlywell is brought to you by Healthy Georgia and produced by CNC Media.